Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about a couple different ways to mix pencils, whether that be with one single color or with a few different colors. So I kind of drew an example here. You might not be able to see it, but it's basically making the piece of the art pop. The inside is lighter and then the outside edges are darker, kind of giving it a popping effect. So what I'm going to start with, I'm going to do this one over here, is just shade this whole piece in with white. Again, it just helps it pop a little more and give it some effect. So just to get a base layer down there. One thing you always do want to remember with this is to keep your pencils very sharp because it helps the color get into the tooth of the paper. So I'm going to start a very light layer of yellow. Another important thing is to go in little circles with the pencil instead of long lines. It just helps get that detail in there instead of having any lines in your drawing, or your coloring, excuse me. This method does take some time, but it has shown some really good effects, so it's worth it. Again, just very, very small circles. You take the time and don't rush, it should turn out very good. And at this point we don't want to apply too much pressure because that will come later. Brush off some of this. Alright, so once you have that first layer of color on there, we're going to start adding a little bit more pressure. So what I did for this one is start at the outsides and more pressure on the outsides and kind of work my way in. So again, we don't want to go press too hard now, but just a little more than last time. Give it a little more color. Start from the outsides and keep doing those little circles. Should help the color get on the paper better. And for this piece I'm only going to be using one color, and then I'll move on to using more colors next. You can play around with this and see where you want the darker colors because it will have different effects where you place the colors. For this one I did the darker colors on this outside edge, and I also did them coming in from the inside. So I'll do the same thing over here. And start from the line and work your way out. Alright. Alright, so we kind of have the first two layers of color on there. Just filling in some of the spots here. Alright, so now we're going to do the darkest layer of the yellow. So now it's time to apply a little bit more pressure on those outer edges. Just make your way around the line. Just make sure everything's blended together instead of having a very dark line around the edge, and then we don't want to have too much of a jump there, so we're going to kind of just blend it in a little bit with the pencil. So you're going to have the most pressure along the line, and then as you get closer to the middle, ease up on the pencil so it's not getting any dark spots in the middle. Kind of just doing the same thing around inside. And then again, just blending outside. Alright, so it's looking good. Now what some people like to do, it's not necessary, but you can play around with it and see what you like to do, is use a white pencil and just kind of go over everything in the middle, especially because we do want that middle to be the brightest. So I'm just going to make those little circles again in the middle. Make sure to clean off your white pencil before you go ahead and use it, because sometimes there'll be some pencil shavings on there and bring in a color that you don't want to, so just clean it off and just blend all the colors. All together, just bring everything in. There's that. So that's blending with just one color, one shade of one color. I'm now going to go into blending with two different colors. They look similar. You don't want to, you can play around with different colors, but I tend to stay with colors that are similar to each other. So this one's a bit of a golden, darker yellow, and the same yellow that I was using for the last demonstration. So I'm still going to start with the white pencil again. I'm just sharpening it because we want it very sharp again to get into those, the tooth of the paper, excuse me. Right. So I'll do this one right here. So just a nice light, very light layer of this white here. Color it all in. As you color, you might, start applying more pressure as time goes on, but just really try to focus on keeping it light when you need to, especially for this first base layer. That brings us to the first layer of yellow. Again, this is the same yellow that I just used right here. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that we did to start this one over here. We're just going to do a nice light layer. Remember those little circles? Don't want any big lines in the drawing. Alright, so now I'm going to move on to the darker golden yellow. Again, make sure it's nice and sharp. So again, I'm going to start from this line and just do little circles, nice and light, because this is a darker color, so we don't need to press as hard as we did with the yellow over here. Right. Once everything looks filled in, you can go ahead and do the same thing to the middle. Little light circles with the pencil. Another thing you can do to help keep the pencil sharp is rotate the pencil in your hand, so it'll help keep the pencil at its sharpest point instead of, if you use it on the same point for too long, it will become dull. So you just want to keep rotating it and make sure you have the sharpest point of the pencil. Alright, so we have our first layer of the darker yellow on there. Now what we're going to do is go even lighter, a little more in from that first line there. Light little circles. And the same thing for this middle part. Alright, and again, really light, really small circles. This may seem tedious, but it really does give your picture a beautiful effect. And you don't necessarily need to do this to all of your pieces in here, but it just, for those bigger pieces, it looks really nice, and you can just play around with it and see what works best for you. Alright. So we kind of tied everything together in there. Now I'm going to go over with the lighter yellow pencil again. Just kind of go over everything. I'm going to start near the line again, pressing a little harder with the yellow pencil. Not too hard though. Keep rotating that pencil. Again, just lighten up a little bit, go towards the middle. Just tie everything in together. If those edges still aren't dark enough for you, you can always go in and add more. You just need to kind of play around with it and see how everything turns out. I would recommend to always start lighter, because if you press too hard and it's all over your drawing, then it's going to be incredibly difficult to get it off, but you can always add more. So that would be a good recommendation. So again, just fill everything in, and if you want, you can go over it with a white pencil again, especially in this middle area here. It will help blend everything really nicely and give it a little more brightness in the middle. So it looks very nice. Here.